Will you please welcome Dr. Sarah Faust?
Thank you, Rick. So what I'm talking to you today about is holistic measurement. And I'm going to tie together a lot of topics that people have already discussed today, hopefully with a little bit more detail in some places, because the content's been fantastic today. Everyone's been right on the money with the measurement side of things. I'm completely in agreement, which is good news. So the things I'm going to take you through today are measurement frameworks, live monitoring in our FlightDeck, the return of Econometrics, and how to future-proof your measurement, just a few tips. So looking at measurement frameworks to start with. There are so many problems facing the industry with direct measurement. We've heard about cookies. They're disappearing next year. That's a huge issue. But what that does is that gives us an opportunity to reset and to look at how we're actually measuring things. We don't need to, with the loss of cookies, we don't need to abandon our measurement, but we do need to reassess what it is that we're looking at, why we're looking at it, and truly the impact that it's having. Any activity that we're doing, it needs to be measured in a meaningful way that's relevant to the way that we're buying it and why it's on a media plan in the first place. For example, don't try to assess your YouTube activity by directly attributable sales because that's not why it's there. There's kind of other opportunities. So we've mentioned our engagement frameworks already today, which is just taking, quite simplistically, it's the axis along the top. It's taking people along a journey of you're reaching them, they're then aware of you, they understand you, they might consider purchasing from you, they're engaging with you, exploring you, then moving on to becoming advocates and brand love. And as you're on this different journey, the things that you measure are different, and every media channel will have its role in that framework where you're buying it, and we just need to make sure that we're looking at the right metrics along that framework to make sure it's appropriate to its position in the media plan. So with reach, we're talking about reach and impressions and views, like absolute numbers, how many people saw that ad. Whereas when you move more into attitudinal outputs, we're looking at things like the brand tracking, such as things in YouGov. So it's how do people feel about your brand? Do they consider purchasing from you? And just those opinions about that, which goes throughout the whole user journey, all the way through from awareness to the brand love stage. When it comes to behavioral outputs, that's things that people are doing. So it might be in the early stage of the journey, they're just reacting to your content. So we don't want to obsess too much over kind of likes, because not everyone's so willing to publicly put themselves out there, but just views, engagement with all that activity that we're doing. And then starting to take simple actions. So it might be entering competitions, signing up for emails, visiting pages on your website. And yeah, hopefully you kind of get the picture of where I'm going with this, that there's just this journey of all the different roles the activities play in that we're buying. But ultimately, it all comes down to the business outputs, and that's what we need to not forget about when we're measuring our media. Any business cares about revenue, and how much profit they have and their cash flow. And so it's really important that we go back to using those metrics and kind of revisit the past. How many sales did I get? And look at the big picture measurement rather than the kind of micro stuff that digital world and cookies has made us kind of lazy in depending too much on all of the data that's become available to us. Just taking that step back and saying it's actually about how much money I'm making. So moving on to FlightDeck. So it's important that we have short, mid, and long-term measurement in place with any kind of campaign that we're doing. And the way that we do that at the Kite factory is in our FlightDeck. So our FlightDeck is our business intelligence platform. It's where we do all our campaign reporting, but it's also where we house a lot of insight. And it's the back end of the campaign. It's all the data that's housed there. We have all data in one place. We have over 400 different ways to bring data in. And it allows us to give automated reports with interactive data and visuals to our clients that's available for them 24/7 to be able to go in and see how activity is going. So it's not just about performance, like simply about the performance data. It can do that very well. Digital platforms have so much data available, and that's all there. We can connect to all sorts of different ways to get that. Just to touch on a handful of the things that we can connect to. So on the left-hand side there, we've got kind of typical digital data that you'd expect to be available in any kind of performance dashboard. Your ad buying data across Meta and Google, the Google Analytics suite, just any kind of DSP or digital ad buying platform that's available, and we put that straight through. Moving into the second category, this gets a bit more into the insight and the audience and the planning stuff that's behind there. So we're bringing in stuff like the YouGov trackers, data from SimilarWeb and SEMrush about competitor websites, competitor behavior, information from Nielsen, Ad Intel about competitor spends as well. And by bringing all of this together, we're able to look not only at what your own activity is doing, but what effect your competitors are having on your activity. And just have everything there available readily to just explain what's happening when it happens live. And finally, my kind of favorite data to bring into FlightDeck is the stuff on the right-hand side. So this is all the business data. This is sharing stuff with us via SFTP sites, giving us access to SQL servers with tables, with business data. So we're not just bringing in what the ad platforms say has happened, we're bringing in what has actually happened in your business and be able to see those uplifts of what's going on kind of in real time or kind of as readily as you are to share data with us. And we can connect to all like database systems, cloud platforms, CRM systems, as well as just directly ingesting files sent to us. So there's huge potential there for just looking at all the data that's available and pooling that all together in FlightDeck. So just to show you a couple of non-traditional examples of things that we've put into our dashboards. So we've got rolling competitor analysis on the left-hand side. So we've got from Nielsen Ad Intel showing the different spend that your competitors are spending, what channels they're in. So we're looking both over time and by the channel mix of what's going on. So just having that awareness of what your competitors are up to, but taking that outside of just a kind of quarterly planning deck and bringing that more into a real-time approach. And on the right-hand side, I've just got a simple kind of whole business data view, which is performance year on year. So just how many transactions are you getting as a business? How many sessions are you delivering? And make sure that we're monitoring the thing that your business actually cares about and not the thing that it's being kind of distracted with in the digital world. And my final topic is just moving on to the return of Econometrics. So Econometrics was used really heavily in the 1990s as a measurement technique for media. Pre-digital, it's had a huge resurgence in recent years as people have been worrying about measurement, but also looking about those channels that you've never really been able to measure properly, such as the TVs and the radios that we know work from kind of consumer research, but haven't been able to put the numbers on it quite so much. So econometrics and marketing mix modeling terms can be used fairly interchangeably. So just to define marketing mix modeling, it's a statistical analysis on marketing time series data, estimating the impact of various marketing tactics and other factors on sales that can then be used to forecast a future set of tactics. So where we've been focused on a bottom-up approach to measurement, attributing every single sale to a media channel, so looking at every conversion ID and saying what drove that channel. This is doing the opposite. We're looking at the movement, the statistical movement of the sales or whatever your KPI is over time, as the spend, but as a total number and not as a single sale. So why would you build an econometric model? It's useful where media investments have shown consistent growth across a mix of online and offline channels. So this has been an explanation that we've used for quite a bit of time. But as online becomes less measurable, it becomes a lot more relevant in that space as well as another channel that you're spending money on and wondering what the effect was. When you've got a mix of online and offline channels, it can become really difficult to measure the impact of something in isolation. So we get a lot of requests for uplift studies. So an example is if a client's on TV and they say, well, how many sales did it drive? And then we look, well, can't you just say before TV, how many sales did I have? And after, how many did I have a day? And then get the percentage uplift from that. Whereas actually it's quite noisy, and it's very rare that the only thing that changed was that you were on one single channel at that time. But by using an econometric model, a marketing mix model, we can look at those factors in combination together and build the channels on top of each other, so that it doesn't really matter that you also spent on Facebook and changed your creative and did this at the same time. It allows you to build that full picture view. An MMM also allows you to look at the longer term impacts of media channels and how they're working together. So we include things such as ad stocks, where media can impact more than just the single week that it was bought in. So we know that the impact of TV particular is more than just that single week that it's bought in. The Pampers case study earlier shows that with a huge impact, that it's a long tail on the measurement, and we're able to build that into a statistical model to look at that impact over time, driving together. So how an MMM works. So I've just shown the dashed line is total sales of a brand. And just very, very simplistically, I've added 3 elements that make up, that are having an impact on that sale. So we can see from the yellow that for this brand, Valentine's Day causes a spike in sales, but we can also see that Christmas causes a spike in sales, and then we've got media channel 1 as well. What the model does is it looks at the trend of the sales over time, and statistically assigns the percentage to each of the channels of how much of that impact was from that particular element. We can then get a breakdown by week of everything that caused all the sales in that week, and use that to get an equation to forecast future sales. So it's a really powerful statistical technique that, as with kind of any measurement technique, has its limitations as well. But it's completely independent of all the digital ad tracking and cookies that we've previously used, and it's just how many sales did you get and what factors came into play. So it's really useful technique. So quite simply, 3 things that we need to be able to do this. We need spend and volume of any kind of media that was bought. So that by volume, I mean the clicks, the impacts, the impressions for any channels that were bought. Need a 2-year period of data, because we add non-media factors into models as well, the seasonality. So for example, to be able to know the impact of Valentine's Day as opposed to media that was bought in Valentine's Day 2021, you need to have a minimum of 2 Valentine's Days in your data. We need a comprehensive list of non-media factors. So that's things that are known to or suspected to have affected the KPI. So that's the competitor spend, any market trends. We'll test things like weather, consumer confidence, retail price index, all the things that are having a huge impact on everyone's business KPIs at the minute. And then most importantly, we need your business KPI over the same period of time to be able to build that model. So just finally, I have a few tips from me about how to future-proof your measurement. Everyone's spoken about loads of different techniques out there, and I would advise you to use use them all and use them all as much as possible while all the data is available to you so that you can compare the results of one to the other. You don't want your cookies to be turned off and then go straight into a new measurement solution without being able to say what the difference was. So my advice is stop obsessing about the attribution of each sale. As a business, you care about the overall business metrics, so let's make sure that that's the focus of everything that we're doing there. Secondly, share the business data that you care about with your media agency. We're only able to measure our campaigns properly if we have that data available to us and shared with us. So if we're making all our planning and optimization decisions based on data we're collecting in the ad servers, we're missing a huge chunk of the picture. So please, I encourage you to share that data. And finally, introduce statistical measurement techniques into your measurement, as well as all the other suite that's been mentioned today, to make sure we're doing all that we can to tackle the silver bullet of measurement. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you, Sarah. I mean, fantastic.